I performed my IRI on Grace. Grace is a first grader. She's 7 years old and currently attends the Yeshiva of Flatbush in Brooklyn. She was born full term, and due to complications, her mother had a C-section. Her parents are both married and both earned bachelor's degrees from Brooklyn College. She comes from an English-speaking household and has a 4-year-old brother. Grace is fortunate enough to be exposed to a print-rich environment and has always been encouraged to interact with books. She has a passion for literacy, and the entire family is involved in this process. Grace is age-typical in her education, which means she follows the curriculum appropriately. She behaves in a socially acceptable and age-appropriate manner. She is described as an outspoken child socially, but also in an age-appropriate and socially acceptable manner. She is well-liked by her peers. Grace was chosen for the IRI because she was doing very well in comparison to her peers. I wanted to know if there was anything that we could do to help her move up a level in her reading. Grace scored well on her school reading test. Actually, she scored above average without any further specifications. Grace's problem was that her reading level was not yet determined, so therefore we didn't know how far we could push her educationally. I decided to administer the IRI in her home, which was a huge positive attribute because it was her comfort level. Grace and I are very familiar with each other. I've known her since she was 2, and so I was familiar with her mannerisms and her moods, and I knew when I needed to lay off and when I was able to push her harder. We began with the word recognition inventory, and I used index cards and started at the pre-primer level because that was 2 levels below first grade, which is where she's at. She became frustrated when she got the words wrong, and she would self-correct herself. Next section was reading orally. She was excited to show off her skills here, and in the pre-primer level she did very well. She was not pleased with the silent reading section, but she did it anyways to please me. She did the whole IRI with little to no distractions. In the word recognition inventory, in the pre-primer section, she had 1 mistake, the word surprise. In the oral reading, she got 0 out of 64 word recognition, 0 out of 100 comprehension. She didn't even have to pause to answer these questions. And in the silent reading, she got 0 out of 100 in comprehension. In the primer level, word recognition inventory, she got the word please incorrect, which was strange because it's a fairly common word. In the oral reading, she got 0 out of 76 word recognition, 0 out of 100 comprehension, and silent reading 0 out of 100. In the first grade level, the vowel diphthongs gave her a hard time. She had 2 errors, soup and enough. In the oral reading, 1 out of 88 word recognition, 0 out of 100 comprehension, silent reading 10 out of 90. In the 2-1 level, which was harder for her, she had 3 errors in the word recognition inventory. The oral reading, 5 out of 112. The words were a little more difficult for her to sound out. 10 out of 90 in comprehension and 25 out of 75 silent reading. She was done with the silent readings at this point. So now it was time to start with the listening capacity. So we went to the 2-2 area. She had 5 errors in the WRI. In the oral reading, she had 6 out of 131 in the word recognition and 20 out of 80 in the comprehension. In the listening capacity, she had 20 out of 80. I did the listening capacity test on 2 other levels, the 3-1 and 3-2, and she scored equally 20 out of 80 in comprehension. She enjoyed this. She likes to be read to, and she does fully understand the text. In the oral reading, her independent level was first grade. In instructional, 2-1, and frustration level was 2-2. She needed to be pushed a little bit harder. In the oral reading comprehension, her independent level was first grade, instructional 2-1, frustration 2-2. In the silent reading, her independent was primer. Her instructional was 2-1. I could not determine her frustration because she was fed up and would not go on anymore. So at this point, her listening capacity was 2-2. Her weaknesses were in consonant digraphs and vowel diphthongs, like the word could, but she mastered it by the end of the IRI. She did very well in structural analysis, prefixes, suffixes, combining forms. She had no accent. The special notes I had for her were that silent reading was very hard for her. She needed to fully practice much more in that section. We needed to increase her vocabulary so that larger words would be easier for her to identify, and as the passages got longer, she got more frustrated. Grace was a pleasure to test. She was fully accommodating, and she did great, and I think that she can be pushed to another level. Thank you.